for this discussion. I would like to start by reading the resolution so that we kind of know where I want to go with this, or where I'm thinking of going with this. We talked about it last month and realized it wasn't just a quick changing the wording in the charter. There's going to be a lot more involved in that. So what I'd like to try to do is get the clock started on what the steps are, and with the help of Dan down the road to see if we can move this forward. But let me read the resolution so we have an idea of what the discussion will involve. A resolution to amend the Kingston City Charter C11-5C to state such sale or sales must be approved by New York State Water Power and Control Commission and the Common Council. The Common Council will be the added part. The Common Council authorizes the city to take all necessary steps to implement this amendment, including the scheduling of any public hearings, holding a public referendum at the next general election in November, and submitting any necessary documentation to the Board of Elections, and whatever other legal steps are needed to get this on the November ballot. The purpose of this resolution is to provide a safety net for the City of Kingston residents so they will have representation for future sale of water.
So this is any sale of water to
Outside of the city.
Outside of the city. Okay.
So just outside of the city.
Right, because that's for the authorization.
So I mean, if you had Niagara was at the business park and they wanted the same amount of water, then it would be okay?
Well, this amendment doesn't address that situation.
Okay, that's what I'm just wondering. All right.
That's a good point, though. Should it be just, should we just leave off?
I mean, do you want to approve water sales of a certain size, or is it any sale outside the city of Kingston?
Just added that.
I think so.
I don't think we specify the size or volume or quantity or capacity.
Because we sell water in the town of Ulster, and they bring it to whoever. And then, East Kingston.
700,000 gallons. So there's a number. You're right.
But I'm just saying, so does this, then, if it's under the existing contract of the town of Ulster, and somebody adds a house someplace that doesn't really apply because it's under the existing sale we're making, and if they need more water at some point, then we have to prove that? I'm just mechanics, how is this going to work for us? We have a deal right now with the town of Ulster. If the town of Ulster adds...
Right, that wouldn't be effective with it.
Well, if the town of Ulster adds enough houses in some area, they need to extend it and then buy, another 100,000 gallons. Would that come under this, what do you think?
Well, they already have a contract. I'm sure that's covered in their current contract.
Yes, it would come under it because any.
We're selling more water.
That's right. Sell more water outside of the city of Kingston. It would be subject to our. It would, if the public approves this amendment, then it would be subject. So it'd be subject to our approval, and the DEC's approval as well, and the water department.
I thought it was interesting when I was doing research. Gloversville, New York has geyser crystal water, and I think they allow them 310,000 gallons in Gloversville. They put up, they've been there for a long time. It's a major employer, so they're not about to. They might want to be willing to negotiate, but initially when they started out, I think it was 310,000 gallons a day for Crystal Geyser. So they put up.
Does their city have? Are there people represented by in that sale, or is it a separate?
I don't know. I'm just looking online. They also are in a watershed, so the Adirondacks. So they have a little more water. Sometimes it's more dependable. But that's how they stated it. Now I don't know. You don't have access to the contract. That maybe they would allow them further going forward. But I forgot how many people they employ, and that's a major employee in Gloversville. So they're probably going to give them the water if they need it because it's not too many industries in Gloversville. So. But that was one thing they originally started at 310.
Yeah, I don't even think it's an issue of whether or not all the hypothetical situations that could come up. The point of this is that we were sitting here with zero representation. The people that voted us in, we had people coming up to me, and I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it, and that to me that's a little bit scary. I mean, we have no say in it. So that's all this does. I mean, whether you were for it or against it had nothing to do with what this is about.
I was sitting on the fence until recently. I read where California is going through a drought, and the water companies were still bottling. Everybody had to tear up their lawns. They couldn't water. I thought, this is really really gotten out of hand. So that was really a big concern too, that, okay, they were able to wiggle through and get them the water to bottle, where meanwhile, the people in the towns were told to start digging up their lawns because they couldn't water them anymore. So, yeah, I think there's some along that we've got to
Right,
reach.
it's just not, I don't think it's, it's good for economic development if we have a compromised water supply, and that should, we should at least have some say in that, rather than having it completely taken out of our hands.
Okay, well, the mayor, appoints the members of the water board, so if everybody elects the mayor, don't they have some say through that election? I mean, yeah, the common council doesn't have any say, but the mayor and the water board, I'm just, again, saying, it's not like there's no representation for the people that.
Well,
It's
he's
very
one voting
consolidated
member.
representation.
He's one voting member on that board.
My
So-
concern is the people that they appoint to the board. Sometimes, right now, they've got people who have degrees in water management, but going forward, if you run out of people who have a background in water and conservation, and I get a little nervous if you put just somebody who's a school teacher on the board, which just happens to teach earth science. As an example, I want somebody who had a little more expertise, and I think sometimes by having the council involved, we have a little more say to kind of control it to a certain extent, rather than, how can you be sure you're going to get qualified people on the board every time there's a new board appointment? That was my other question too.
Well, because we're getting the voices from everyone, too. But I mean,
but I'm saying
I
without
know, if we do have,
oversight.
I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
But if you do have control, you're hearing everyone's voices, so you can act.
So they
act
can make an
differently.
informed decision also too. If nothing else, they can make
Yeah,
an
just-
informed decision.
Yeah, so Matt had requested of Corp Council, Andy Grieben, to kind of write an interpretation. And it sounds like he's mapped out kind of two ways forward for this. One is what you're talking about, what we're talking about right now is getting a resolution out there. And there is a real clock on that if you look at November.
There's timelines.
And the other one is a petition and gathering the 10% of those who voted in the last gubernatorial race election. So those are two distinct ways forward. If we're going to do the way forward we're talking about now, we really have like just a couple of months to get it, to pass it through.
Right.
Yeah, it's because then there has to be.
So we need to vote on
They're
this
very
next week.
specific. We're doing a reverse calendar from November. There's not a lot of time left for doing it this way. So that's just to point out that it was good to find that out. So thank you for asking the question. And
Thanks to the Corp Council for getting us that.
yeah,
Well, I think
it
that-
was very useful.
Well, I think that's part of what we're doing here. We want to kind of get the clock started on that. Is that everyone,
I still want to know the thinking on just outside the city. I mean, if you're concerned about using large amounts of water, which I'm assuming we're talking about large amounts of water, why is it just outside the city that you're so concerned of having a voice?
No, I think
And a
that's a
big
good
sale
point.
inside the
I'm
city.
not. I mean, I don't.
Was there
I
a
don't think
separate
it's just
place that we should be looking at that describes all sales? I mean, and maybe that's beginning to become an overreach. It's just we're concerned with things that are
So
outside.
it just doesn't follow logical.
Well, it does because it's discretionary whether or not we sell water. It sounds like it's discretionary whether or not we sell water outside of city limits, to non-residents, non-commercial entities. And certainly the Niagara issue, there was a large amount of water that Niagara Bottling was looking for, and we know that we can make a very simple change to the charter to protect that. And so certainly while you bring up a good point, whether or not we should look at what say the Common Council should have about selling water inside the city, that's not something we've discussed over the many months that we were battling and dealing with or discussing Niagara. It was all about the sale outside of the water. So this has been discussed by residents, it's been vetted by what action we have to take, and so this is a relatively simple solution to address this specific issue of sale outside of the city, water outside the city. I certainly agree with you that it'd be worthwhile to look at what actions we should take, if any, about the sale of water inside the city and what kind of impact. But I don't think that discussion is for tonight. That discussion is for another time when we have, when we can discuss that issue in more detail. Especially since all the conversation has been focused on the sale outside of the city.
Would we have to go through this process all over again, though, if we decide a later date to do it?
so, yeah.
So now we're gonna go through the process twice. I understand what he's trying to say. Should we get it inclusive? Do it the first time out of the gate, or do we come back and keep opening the latch and put more in?
But, we certainly would then have to have more discussion, and that may put your time clock back.
I think we try to keep it simple for our purposes
Okay.
here.
I'm just trying to figure out a way not to
No, but-
keep repeating yourself, going through this process.
And this will be actually a really good learning process for the council and for the public, and so that people are familiar with all the steps that it takes, and so that we're educated about the steps that we need to take to modify our charter, if that's what we want to do, and to get the public to say about changes to the charter. And certainly, next year, if the common council or charter commissioner, whoever wants to address other changes, we'll be more educated about that
Well,
process. And we can address it.
the other piece of that is that the sale of water inside the city, there are other restrictions, other boards, there's planning board, there's a lot of other factors that come into play. It's not just selling water and that water goes and we have no, we have no control, we have no say in what town of Ulster is doing with the water. Where if it's in the city, there are enough departments where there's oversight and there's other safety nets to where, to me, it's not as threatening or scary to think that might happen with sale of water inside the city. That's how I look at it.
And you're right, I think we have a lot more say about what happens with our various boards, and I think that's a good point, Bill.
So I think this is all, I would just add that whatever action we take here tonight, that shouldn't discourage, a petition drive by anybody who wants to take that up from occurring as an insurance, just to make sure we're not missing the boat, so to speak.
And that goes up, and then ask the question, who's gonna be in charge of the petition, who's gonna be, where they're gonna get the data from, we gotta be sure of the council.
We don't have to
No.
worry
I would say
about
the
the petitions out of
council
our
should not be
hands.
involved
That's-
in this, no, this has gotta be a separate.
Yeah, that's not us,
No.
unless you want to work together on that.
Yeah, C11.4C is specifically outside the city, so.
And I do have one question. Who holds, I know in Corp Council's email it said that the mayor holds the public hearing, is that correct? That the mayor does
10
it,
to
or
20
does it?
days after.
Right, is it the mayor or is it the common council that holds the
Mayor.
vote?
The
It's the mayor.
It's a mayor.
Great.
And, just, I haven't seen the memo, I don't even know what it says, to be honest. I mean, I saw it, but I don't have a copy of it.
It's,
I was, working on some other matter.
When was that? Was that an email
I
from
just got
Andy?
this today.
Andy sent out something,
Oh, okay.
the mayor holds,
Yeah.
I'll just read it, holds a public hearing which must be called within 10 days of the passage of the law by the common council and must be held within 20 days of passage.
And now let me just, when I read that, it reminded me of a question I thought of right away. Common council passes the law, so since this is a local law now,
It needs 2 readings, yeah.
okay, so we actually have to go through 2 readings, 2 months, then it's passed.
Then it's passed by the council,
And
then
then
the mayor
the
holds
public
a public
hearing,
hearing
then he can sign the law
after the public hearing,
after the public hearing.
consideration of
And
the
then we have to have a
public
referendum.
Yeah.
And it can't be less than 60 days.
Yes, okay.
So there's
Time's of the
restrictions on
essence.
both ends.
Quick question, this is public safety, does that have to go laws and rules?
No,
You sure?
yeah.
Isn't there changing the law?
That's
Changing-
President Noble's decision.
Jim Noble referred to this committee.
But I'm just asking, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's pending in this committee.
We're
I think
very sick.
Yeah, I don't think, that's at the,
Local law can.
I'm
Whatever
just
the
asking
president-
because it's a local.
well, like we had the one,
Local law
the
on
finance,
you know.
for the, Mike Shutt for the trucks that passed through. This committee wasn't a finance issue, but
I'm
he
just
made,
making sure because I want all the i's
Yeah.
dotted and t's crossed, so we're not, screwing
I'll
up.
entertain a motion on this.
Motion.
Second.
And that's-
Steve?
All right, great.
Oh, yeah, you weren't here on time, he took over for you, took over from
You
your.
want to take it?
No, that's
On
fine.
to further discussion, any other comments before we take the vote?
I'd like to know, the specifics is the portion, and you're saying that it is the outside water sales, is that part of the charter?
That's the part of the charter you're speaking of.
Yeah, it is.
Now, just as a question, because I know it's come up before, what about the water board charter? Does that need to be changed in any way?
Well, none of this is to say that the state would let you do it anyway.
Okay.
Okay,
But
that's
I'm
a
just-
completely different issue.
Right. All right, so let's just go on with this then. I guess we'll
Yeah, this
we'll
really,
cross
I
those
think,
when we get to them.
well, I think what this does, it just kind of gets us,
Right, we'll get
gets the
started.
ball
All
rolling
right.
a little bit, and then we're going to rely on Dan and Andy to help
I'll
guide us through
just-
this process. Matt?
I'll just say, I think this is really great of this council. We've stuck with this issue for a number of months. We've responded to the public, and we continue to do so. And now this is really, assuming it passes the council and the mayor signs it, that to give the public the right to decide whether or not we're going to sell our water outside.
Right, then they
the city
have,
limits.
it's their call.
I think it's the public's call, and I think to give that power to the public and ultimately to their representatives is spectacular and exciting. I'm excited about this.
I think they had good intentions back in 1895, but I don't think they ever in their wildest dreams thought people would actually bottle water and sell it.
From California.
Yeah, times have
Think
changed.
about it, they used to bring in
Only
buckets.
take ice out.
Kind of like the Tuttle when they had horse and buggies and now they have buses
All your
and
metal
tractor trailer. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Can we read the resolution?
Want me to read it again?
sorry.
Sure.
Just so.
Resolution to amend the City of Kingston City Charter C11-5C to state such sale or sales must be approved by the New York State Water, Power, and Control Commission and the Common Council, and that's the part that's added at the end of the Common Council. The Common Council authorizes the city to take all necessary steps to implement this amendment, including the scheduling of any public hearings, holding a public referendum at the next general election in November, and submitting any necessary documents to the Board of Education, and whatever other legal steps are necessary.
Election.
What's that?
You don't want to submit it to the Board of Education.
Did I say education? Oh my God.
It's just a cross out, Bill. It's consistent with all.
No, I didn't cross it out. I actually wrote it right. I just
Oh, God,
didn't use it.
education's getting something.
Mary Ann, be proud of me. There's no cross-outs on this so far. Thank you, Dan. And whatever other legal steps are needed to get this on the November ballot. Purpose of this resolution is to provide a safety net for the City of Kingston residents so they will have representation for future sale of water outside the City of Kingston.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, and I echo Matt's sentiments that this is a very important first step to make this happen. Rebecca, you have something? Go ahead.
I just want to thank you all for sticking with us here on this, and I'm so relieved that we're moving this forward, and I'm committed to help in any way. If there's a petition process,
Oh, yeah.
we're happy to help the council and support the council in moving this forward and getting as many citizens as necessary to do what's required. So thank you so much.
Kevin, you had something?
It's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's going around. Now we'll move on to something not quite as
Boring.
critical. So, yeah, now we're just back to the regular public safety stuff.